Welcome to Coffee Break with Rachel Vigil, taking a daily look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel Vigil.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. The news of Russell Wilson and the Broncos divorce official yesterday afternoon, and there's plenty to dive into with that. But we got to start off the show with another cryptic message. Cryptic tweet, maybe we should talk about, from Courtland Sutton, because it seems to be going a little viral right now, right before we bring in Cecil Lammey, because I'm excited to have him. Courtland Sutton says, another one, though. This is 3 hours ago this morning, and his Twitter bio, or X bio now, says, God-fearing man on a mission. What's next? What is next? And that's a great question, as we will bring in our very own Cecil Lammey. Good morning, Cecil. How are you?
Yeah, what's next is all the guys Russ listed on his goodbye speech thing. It's like, okay, they're going to be gone too. So Sutton, I expect next, based on the scouting combine, there is a small market for Courtland Sutton. There is no market for Jerry Jeudy. So what's next after Russell Wilson is, yeah, some of these other guys are going to get dealt, and we're waiting to see what happens.
So Courtland Sutton probably knows that he's moving on, just like Russell Wilson knew. That's why we started seeing the hype videos. We started seeing the daddy-daughter dance videos, all sorts of things. So Courtland Sutton, you're thinking, assumes he knows that he's going to be moving on from the Denver Broncos as well.
I'd say Courtland, and this is no inside information, although I do love Court, and, you know, have discussions with him at times. I don't think Courtland Sutton wants to be here. So not only is it Denver needs to free up cap space and work with their money, it's the fact that who wants to be here. And I think last year with Sean Payton, he was kind of figuring out guys that wanted to be here. Court meshed with Russ, and that was good. And I think he really kind of rehabbed his career, and that's why there is interest in Courtland Sutton out there from perhaps a team like Baltimore or whatever. So, you know, I think it might be mutual. And sometimes it's like that. I remember when Emmanuel Sanders was traded to the 49ers, and he essentially, or should I say allegedly, went into John Elway's office and be like, yeah, you got to trade me or my knee really hurts. So, and Elway did him a solid and sent him to a place where he wanted to go. So, yeah, I think there are ways, you know, this is why Russell Wilson was released on Monday. The combine's over. They went to Indianapolis, and I am pretty sure that they asked a bunch of teams if you want to trade for Russell Wilson. I asked a bunch of teams if they would, and they laughed at me. So I feel like Adam Sandler, they're all going to laugh at you. Yeah, they probably laughed at the Broncos in terms of like, hey, you want to trade for us? No, that's a no. Are we sure it's a no? And then come back from the combine and just release him. Now it's time for Sutton and others.
I was going to say, Cecil, let's be honest, though. If you already know the Broncos are most likely going to step away from Russell Wilson, let's just pretend you're the Steelers, even though Diana Rossini yesterday reporting that they're not interested in a veteran QB. We can get into that in just a second, but I'm going to use the Steelers as my example. You're like, oh, maybe I could be interested in Russell Wilson, but why the heck would I ever want to trade for him when I know the Broncos are going to release him regardless? So it feels like they were kind of pointless conversations to be had.
Yeah, I think it was more dotting I's, crossing T's.
Okay.
Like, are you sure? Are you sure? We'll pay some of the money. We'll pay most of the money. We'll pay you to take him. That's how Brock Osweiler was dealt when he was dealt from Houston to Cleveland. It was like, here, we're going to pay you to take this guy. So those were options, to be sure. But that contract is so bad. It's terrible. And that's why nobody was going to say yes. Now we have to wait and see when Russell Wilson gets added, because technically, as a free agent, and I know it has to be start of the new league year, but like, okay, we know teams can line up and get ready, but how many teams will that be really?
True. I'm one of those people, Cecil, when I'm going through a breakup, I'm like, get all of your stuff. I want nothing to do with you but here. And so when I heard that the Broncos were most likely going to be splitting the dead money into two different types of like years in between 2024 and 2025, I was like, nope, just do the $85 million this year. They can suck, but we'll be done with Russell Wilson. However, there are two options when it comes to them, essentially. So option one is $35.4 million for 2024, $49.6 million for 2025, or option two is $53 million for 2024 and $32 million for 2025. If you are George Payton, Sean Payton, the Penners, which option do you like best?
I think it's option two, because the cap went up so much. You can eat most of it now. The cap will go up again next year. And by what it goes up will almost be what the dead money is. I don't know if it will be a historic $30 million where's the Taylor Swift impact? But because of the historic rise in the salary cap, you take the larger chunk this year, you take the smaller chunk next year, and you wash it away. And what you call it, Rachel, is the breakup box, right?
Yep.
I always used to advise on my old ESPN Denver days, in my younger days, Rachel, I would say, guys, buy what you like. So when you break up and she gives it back to you, you like what you're getting back in the breakup box. So yeah, essentially now you have a 2-year breakup box with Russell Wilson. Here you go. Now get out of here. We're moving on.
Oh, man. It's hard to believe how far we've come in just 2 years, Cecil. Yesterday, you and I were in the same meeting room, and I told you, I was like, man, I feel emotional about this. And on my car ride home, I was thinking, like, why do I feel this way? And because it feels like the Denver Broncos failed, right? Like there was so much hope. We were all grasping onto the idea of playoffs and everything, but it feels like the Broncos failed. Like they couldn't be good enough for Russell Wilson. And whether you look at it as Russell Wilson wasn't good enough or the Broncos, whoever, like which side you're on, regardless, it was a failed quote unquote marriage at the end of the day.
I think that's a good way to put it because it was failure with people that have succeeded.
Yeah.
You know, Russell Wilson has a Super Bowl. Sean Payton has a Super Bowl. So you take a good, maybe great head coach, you take a good quarterback, and it doesn't work. Like, wait a second, what? Like, I get it if things fall apart with Drew Lock and Pat Shurmur basically hates him or whatever. Okay, whatever. There's things to go into there. I get it if, Case Keenum doesn't work out because he was a 1-year flash in the pan guy. But like, this was a quarterback that can still play, and make no doubt about it, Russell Wilson's going to go somewhere and make plays. Russell Wilson will probably be in the playoffs next year, depending on where he goes, Atlanta, Pittsburgh, what have you. But like, okay, so Russell Wilson can still play good football. Sean Payton is a guru, and so many quarterbacks were genuflecting at the combine to Sean Payton. It tells you the power that he has as an offensive play caller. So this works and this works, but it doesn't work together. That's weird. And it's unfortunate. And I think that's why my word of the day for yesterday was just disappointed. I want things to be better, and they just weren't better.
I know. And here we are. We'll look ahead. I do want to go back to the Diana Rossini report, essentially, that the Steelers are not interested in any veteran QBs. Russell Wilson was specifically named out there, along with a few others. Where do you anticipate Russell Wilson landing, if anywhere at all?
Well, I hate to disagree with Diana Rossini, but let's just say there are things put out there to put people off the trail, off the scent, if you will. So is Pittsburgh eliminated? They don't like any. You mean to tell me they like Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph? That makes no sense. Kenny Pickett is not good. Mason Rudolph is not good. Russell Wilson is still, pretty solid. I'll hesitate to say good, but like he's solid. He's better than those two combined.
Agreed.
So what they say is one thing. What they do is something entirely different. So Atlanta, Pittsburgh, I'm still putting my chips there. And, then we have to see, we have so many dominoes yet to fall. Kirk Cousins, Justin Fields, even Baker Mayfield. Tampa seemed like just a shoe-in to just bring Baker back, and they're going to bring back Mike Evans. And well, now the rumblings are they're looking at quarterback. So it's like, okay, what if they let Baker could Russell Wilson end up in Tampa? Like, so it's a lot of things left. I'm not counting any team out right now. And based on my conversation with teams, and yes, all 32 teams now, because the Patriots talk.
Yeah.
It's so weird. I'm getting Patriots information this year. I'm like, wow, this is odd. With Belichick, they didn't talk at all. They're talking now, and that's why I think all options are open.
Okay. Well, I thought Baker was for sure going to be a done deal, but obviously you might be hearing possibly different. So that's interesting. And the only reason that excites me is because I'm like, oh, Baker to the Broncos, but also they can't afford Baker Mayfield. Like they can't afford a lot of quarterbacks, which is where some frustration lies now because you're looking at a Jacoby Brissett, a Mason Rudolph, a Sam Darnold. I know I'm forgetting one other big name in there, but it's like none of these names are going to excite you.
I would take Darnold off the list. Just,
okay.
If you want to consider that a Lassie bark, go for it. But Darnold may not be the fit that I thought he would be, certainly. And that's, where this is the new information. I think the new information should include no Darnold. Is it a trade for Sam Howell? as suggested by
Cecil.
Doug Farrar, who is a noted QB guru from USA Today. When we interviewed him at the Combine, he said, a Howell and JJ McCarthy combination would be something that he'd get on board with. And I could get on board with that as well, because you have a player in Howell who played a lot of hero ball and had to, because Washington's offensive line sucks.
Terrible.
But also a player that studied Drew Brees when he was coming out of college. And then you get McCarthy, who, and I'm going to say Brees-like, please nobody take that as he's Drew. Cecil Lammey said he's Drew Brees. He's a early second round graded quarterback who will get drafted much higher because it's a quarterback desperate league. Drew Brees would get drafted much higher, and he was the first pick in the second round when he came out in 2001, whatever that was. But like Brees, you have a field general, a leader. JJ is more of a winner, but also JJ's arm, those out routes were taking some time to get there, so how do you scheme around that? You have a quarterback that throws before the break, so then the defender doesn't react to the break, and then the ball's there, even though it takes a little longer to get there. So there's ways around that.
Yeah.
But to say JJ McCarthy, he doesn't have first round tools, and we haven't seen enough. I believe that Bo Nix had almost as many screen passes, micro passes, what they call them, 0 or behind the line of scrimmage. And I believe he had 150 attempts, 143 completions on micro passes. That's almost more passes than JJ McCarthy passed for the entire field. So okay, you need to see more. He needs time. Maybe a Howell McCarthy combination would work for Denver. It sounds good to me.
Interesting, because when you first said that name, I was like, oh no. Jarrett Stidham, Howell, JJ McCarthy. That just sounds like a trio of a bit of disappointment. But as you kind of lay it out, it does make a little bit more sense.
It's about fit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sam Howell's not a world beater. Sam Howell doesn't fit everywhere. Sam Howell fits with Sean Payton. So how do they make that happen? It seems like Washington's intent on Jaden Daniels at number 2. Would they let Howell go for a song? Denver doesn't have many draft picks anyway. Oh, yeah, and you're probably going to have to move up for McCarthy. So there's a million things going on here. You mentioned Baker Mayfield. They need this year's version of Baker because Baker signed, I believe his deal was $3 million.
Yeah.
So Jarrett Stidham's number is what, $7 million this year?
I thought it was 5 both years.
I think it was 3 and 7. I think it was 3 and 7. But either way, you signed Jarrett Stidham for $10 million. You get at Baker for 3. Of course, he probably would have beat out Russ. But anyway, so it's like you need to find who is that, underrated guy gets another chance somewhere. Maybe that's Howell, but you have to trade for Howell. So again, more further complications for the Broncos.
Okay, so we can look at Jarrett Stidham's contract, which I'm just assuming was most likely Sean Payton coming in saying, this is what we're going to do. This is going to be our backup QB, just in case we're going to pay him all this money. But everybody right now is all fed up with the decisions that George Payton has made. And I've been very critical of George Payton and what he has done. And obviously with the contract extension, everyone's like, how can the guy who has done so many bad deals still continue to be in charge of the Denver Broncos? How short of a leash is George Payton on right now, Cecil?
Have you checked Indeed? I think his resume is up to date. Let's just say that. And I do know on very good authority, I could probably tell you which team it is. George Payton will have a job in 30 seconds if the Broncos win, the Broncos get rid of him, which I think is after the draft, which is what you do. Remember, for me personally, I start working on the draft in December. It's the only time I really can because of the regular season. So I have to slog through the regular season. That's why I love draft season more than regular season. And then December, I start working on the draft, whatever. George Payton's been working on this since May.
Yeah.
So rather than cut him, and it's very rare, you would have done it after the season or you would do it after the draft. And I believe we'll see something after the draft. And then George Payton will have a job shortly after that.
Okay. Interesting. I'm curious what team it is. I wish I could try and just guess and see, but I know the answer might be a little secretive at this moment. But it is almost reassuring to know that this season, just the Russell Wilson season in general, could be over. And I say that with George Payton involved. Feels like all ties just need to be cut. And even going back to the start of our conversation, Cecil, when guys like Courtland Sutton are posting about it and saying, like, what's next? It's like this team just needs to blow it all up like they should have done in 2016 and just completely rebuild it. And I think that's exactly what Sean Payton's plan is to do.
Yeah, and if you've been here this whole time and it hasn't worked, I mean, God bless you. Courtland Sutton's a really good player. Justin Simmons is an excellent player. You know what
You're
they
telling
haven't
me
done
Justin
here?
Simmons going to be the next guy sending out a cryptic tweet?
Well, I don't think Justin would do that. I would advise everyone not to do that. That's one of
Agreed.
my pet peeves is like, especially if it's on Facebook or something where one of your high school friends is like, I'm so sick of tired. And like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, is this serious or is it you just complaining? So
Yep.
like, I don't like the cryptic tweets. I would say this: Simmons, Bowles, Sutton. These are the names that could get you a little something if you're the Broncos and you need more assets to trade or to maneuver around and also to clear up
Mm.
salary cap space. So, yeah, I think, the first move was Russell Wilson. It's not the last move in terms of moving on for the Denver Broncos.
Interesting. Okay. Well, definitely be paying attention to social media because we do know those players like some cryptic messages. Cecil, anything else? I know you just got back from the combine. I know you were working like 18-hour days, it felt like. Anything fun that you can tell us that you heard down there?
Oh geez. I mean, fun.
Give me
Fun.
the spiciest take that you're allowed to say.
Oh boy. New England wants Jaden Daniels and they'll move back if they don't. So I mean, that's probably the most like spicy work
Relevant take.
related thing.
Okay.
Plenty of non-work related stuff that's there. And it's interesting, you could say the NFL has a drinking problem. You could say the NFL has kind of a gossip problem.
Mhm.
So and God bless everyone. I'm very like just get down, hide down, don't hurt anybody, whatever. But man alive, watching a bunch of guys get hammered while you're sober, and it doesn't make me better or worse than anybody. It's just my decision.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, so that's what I act like when I drink too much.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't do that.
And
But
how the heck they can all get back up at 6 a.m. the next morning and go always will amaze me. I will give them props right there because I could never.
yeah, mind blown. It was hard enough to do sober, let alone, getting hammered every night in Indy, which is what NFL scouts do.
Yeah, with a nice little headache right there. Cecil Lammey, always appreciate you. And to everybody in the comments as well, thank you so much. Plenty of good stuff, denversports.com. Check out Orange and Blue today because, of course, Mason Cecil have an amazing show over there that are providing so much insight into what the Broncos are going to do next. So we will see all of you guys later. And tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. for another episode of Denver Sports Daily, right back here at 12 p.m. for another episode Coffee Break. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and we will see you later. Bye.